Greetings Duelist and welcome to another video. So, welcome to a new format. We're on June 5th. The format just started. The dueling book ladder has already been reset. And probably some locals and some sanctioned Konami TCG tournaments are gonna be taken underway this week with the current format being ran. So all I'm gonna do is just show you what I started with. I know that a lot of people are probably still scrambling around figuring what deck they want to play, and like I already showcased this deck. I already showcased what the deck like how the deck operates, but I'm just gonna show you a few sample duels. So far, I'm currently undefeated with this. I'm currently 6-0 with it. I'm not gonna show all my matches. I'm gonna just show like half of them, but it's just going to be predicated towards like the interactions of the deck, how strong this deck is, and a couple of options that you can incorporate with this, and things that you need to take note of when it comes to your matchups. The Lunalight Tearlament deck is really fun. It has a lot of interaction, it has a lot of synergy, a lot of engines are aligned together, but it's not really an easy deck to play. There are going to be misplays that you're probably going to see in the duels, and there are things that you can incorporate, and like as well as ideas, strategies, stuff that you can put main your side. And yeah, from the last list I showed, I only did one change. The change that I did is I took out Invoke Caliga and I put in Divine Arsenal. I think like the more and more I play with the deck, the more I just realized you don't need Caliga to win your games. Caliga is a really good floodgate monster that can stop your opponent from playing, but like this deck is already really good at interacting with your opponent. And not only that, but this deck has a lot of resiliency, and it has a lot of backup plans. It has like a lot of powerful things that can do. I feel like if you get to the ideal end board, which is like the end board Tearlaments usually make with Soliek and like Kaleido Heart, you should be fine. Like that's already a lot of interruptions, especially if you have like the perimeter planet as well. Like if you know you're going first, you can side in Crime, and Crime is just like another card your opponent has to struggle with. If you end up on summoning Grapha alongside that, like it's your boards are gonna be really hard to break. So I just felt like I really don't need floodgate monsters. Appaloosa can also do the same thing. Another thing I did was I cut the Rise to Full Height for Abyss Dweller in the side deck. The reason for that is that so Rise to Full Height is really cool because it's a card that your opponent does not know how to play around. It kind of makes it so if you're facing an OTK deck, that OTK deck cannot like beat you at all. Like we're talking about stuff like Purely, for example. But if you're like smart with the deck and you know the ins and outs of your deck and you know how to interact with your opponent, you should be fine. Like with whatever they are trying to do. I valued Abyss Dweller a lot because I don't know if the Tearlament Mirror Match is going to be coming or not, but there are going to be matchups. There are probably going to be seen more in this format where Dweller kind of excels at. We're talking about the Tearlament Mirror Match, we're talking about Branded, we're talking about like in a sense maybe Super Heavy Samurai if they still play in the pure build, like they rely on graveyard effects, a few of them. Like the Chaos Bestial Adventure Synchro deck is a deck that I've been seeing popping around. Sky Striker is another deck that the Dweller is effective against, because if you cut off their access to Ray, that's very detrimental for them. Especially if you pair Dweller alongside Mud Dragon, like Mud Dragon making it so like none of your monsters can be targeted. It's just really strong against Sky Striker. Um, but yeah, um, I'm just gonna show you like the duels, and I'm just gonna go with stuff that might come up in the duels as I show them. Um, so this is one match against Live Twin Sprite. I think I win the die roll. Yes, I do. They Veiler my Reinoheart. I have no place. I do Zodiac immediately because I don't know if they're on spread or not, but cutting their access to the normal summon is important, and having the ability to mill cards and start your engine, like I just found it to be like a priority. The thing about the issue here is that my opponent still has a lot of hand traps. Like for example, the Ash to Pearl Rhino, and I'm doing like Perfume. But if there's one thing Tier is known for is the ability to just keep playing through hand traps, especially with the Lunalight engine. There I summon the Tugaris, he interrupts with the Link 4. I activate the Tiger, he ghost spells that, but I have the Yellow Martin to pounce it, and I summon, and I just go through YOLO Mill 5, he Bailers, I banish, I mill, and I just win because, like, eventually when you get your engine started, you just start snowballing advantage of your opponent. I still didn't know if I was on Sprite or not, but this game kind of predicates towards that. He made a misplay. He summoned Dibley. Normally, I would let him like return it, but yeah, he took like 17 seconds to return the Dibley, and I don't want to be that guy. I really don't, but you know, you kind of have to do that with these tools sometimes. Don't never be afraid to like call out your opponent for doing a misplay. Like they will do the same thing to you. Like I know it sounds bad, but it is what it is. Look at his hand. Like I think we didn't have an issue to keep playing through that because we did have Super Poly. The only real issue would have been like the Ibly if he had a real way to lock us out of the game with that. But you know, who would have known, right? I'm gonna show this replay first. This is against Purely, and like as you guys already know, there are pretty much two ways for Purely to play at the moment. And most of them are just gonna choose to go second. I start my engine, I mill a couple, and one real issue with the Lunalight deck is that sometimes you just either fall short or you just don't mill the right cards. And like even though that the Lunalight and the Tearlament deck have a lot of synergy, not every card itself is synergistic with one another. So yeah, I'm relying on milling here. I milled the Kelbeck and I milled Emerald Bird. That means I mill more cards and I summon back. The Merely triggers, and that means I can summon Grapha. I thought about summoning Road Colors, but then if he had Triple Thrust, then Grapha would have been more helpful. Also, like Road Colors didn't contest against the Purely Beauty. So he Kurikaras in the end phase, he grabs Grapha. I Gamma Seal that. I activate the Foolish Goods. I don't really care about the Purely Beauty because if I can get to my engine properly, I should be fine. I activate Sharon, the patient Keldo. I milled a couple. I have more attack than the Purely Beauty. He returns his Purely cards. We have to be careful because he does run Nib, and Nib is very advantageous for him. I try to Zodiac, he imperms, and now I redo to force brute the Sharon. I go into making Kaleido Heart returns, and I pass turn. He didn't nib because like all he would have done is just make the Kaleido Heart even more effective. And now this is what I was talking about, like the interaction between Kaleido Heart and Zodiac is just very strong. Not only are you getting a negate, but you're getting a spin back, and you're also getting another body because you're fusing with another Tearlament. He summons Purdy. He whiffs. He goes to ready XYZ. He drags Tapelias. I chain it. He chains the quick effect to negate. He sets to impasse. I thought about him making Zeus, but like I guess a fair argument is him making Zeus means he would have been top decking, and that's just gonna make it like even more awkward if I break through his board. Um, I tried to Zodiac. He tries to chain Sleeping Memory. He changed the Happiness Memory. He changed my battle position, but I do end up negating the Pearly Beauty, so I do end up milling 5. I do a small misplay. I forgot that the Kaleido was shuffled back, but I think it was gonna be fine regardless. Um, he shifters. I activate. I don't care about the shifter at all because like my logic is, can they OTK through the shifter? If they can, they can. If they cannot, then like look at my hand. Like I have a lot of cards to just like keep going playing the game, and this is just going to be a showcase of that. Like after a second per Rhino, I grab Merly, I grab King of the Swamp, I grab Polly, I activate that, and this is really strong because even if he does stop the Merly, I have the Polly to fuse into Chimera, and you're about to see in a second why is this Chimera going to be like very very powerful. Like the Camellia, the Sharon, and Harness and the Kaleido Chick all trigger. I remind him that the Chimera cannot be targeted because Poly is engraved at the moment, and this is a really really strong chain block because the last thing in the chain is Kaleido Chick returning the Poly, and they like I guess you can ghost bell that, but it really doesn't matter. Like all the rest of the effects are going through, which means I'm getting 2 summons, 2 draw, like 2 summons, 2 pops, and a draw, which is just very 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 strong. And I OTK. I show him that I had the Super Poly as a backup plan, and we do end up playing another game. Let's see what happens here. I activated the Scream. I Sharon, pitch. I mill pretty much everything. This is going to be a crazy game. You will see a little bit of back and forth, but like once this deck gets rolling, it's just really really hard for your opponent. It's just like a lot is going on, like especially after like milling an Ichizu card with the Bujin. It just feels so unfair. Like it pretty much feels like regular Ichizu tier at that point. I return Reinohard, Sharon, and Kaiju just to summon that. I cross cheap and field spell blow it up. Mill return. I fuse into cross cheap. I grab the Sephiroth. I pitch that. I grab Black Sheep. I Black Sheep effect. Grab Polly. This is an unorthodox play that not a lot of people do, but something I really like doing is I do Poly, fuse those into Karura, and then link all of those away for sprint. And then Merly triggers. Merly returns herself, and I fuse into Drago's Patepelia, and I grab with Redur. The Lightning Storm was unfortunate, but and it pretty much clears my entire board. I told them that I do have a Palooza in my extra deck. Because he and I were both wondering about that. He activates my friend into pretty into purely gets too happy, and this is something unorthodox. He opened the delicious memory, so that makes me kind of scramble because now I have to think about that. If I let the plump go through, it's just going to be very strong. Like if I let him interact with the memory, he can banish cards. And if I let him keep all those materials, he'll just tag itself into Noir, and Noir is really really hard for this deck to out. So I pretty much have to contest that, no matter what. He grabs his memories back, and this is something that I've noticed with Purely. Like in the grind game, Purely is not that bad just because they do have recovery. Um, and like right now, you're seeing that he's pretty much playing through almost everything I have. Um, One misplay that I feel like he did is that he should have just made like the Lyrilusk and just Zeus mentor board. Um, but that's going to be his downfall because he didn't notice. So one thing that he didn't notice is that the Scream and the Pearl Rhino were both live. So my monsters had plus 500 and his monsters had less than 500, and that was very very strong because he did not play around that and he lost his monster and thusly he lost the duel. So the last reply show our showcase is against Flowandrees. I win the die roll and I grabbed that. I grabbed Sharon. I made a misplay. I should have terraforming first, but in hindsight, I was checking for droll. He didn't have droll, so I terraformed it afterwards. I go for a Luna Trap. Luna Trap dump Karma. Through Karma grab Scream, activate Scream, and this is really really strong because now I'm going to get the mills out of this, and this. That's 11 cards shaved out of your deck, and yeah, it's pretty really strong. I milled Solic in the process. I grabbed the Kashtira. I milled a bunch of more cards. Heart triggers, Solic triggers, Scream triggers, Heart. I do Halfness returns, grabs Grapha. I confirmed that I have no more summon this turn, so I traded them into Lugaris. Lugaris drew me into Emerald Bird, which summons that. I normal the Kakusuchi, I mill 5. Merely triggers to return 3. I make Cross Cheap. I grab the Tiger effect, grab that, Cross Cheap. I explain to him how it works. I grab that too. So one really good thing about this is because of the Agido mill, I know he's on Flunderies, and since I know he's on Flunderies, now like I don't have to summon Rokalos, I don't have to summon like Kaliga, I don't have to summon like stuff like that. I can just chill with this current board and just let my opponent play. I pretty much was saved because his 6th card was going to be Shifter, so that's a good heads up from me. I Redoer, grab a spell card, and my opponent's pretty smart. Like he grabs grabs Thrust, knowing that I'm going to interact with it with the Grapha. So he goes into Map, so he can chain block his bird effects periodically. That way he dodges Appaloosa, and he dodges Grapha. Another thing that's really important to note here is that he has the Advent of Adventure, which makes it so he can also play around the Soliak. So this is a very smart Flunderies player. He already knows how to dodge my effects. So when stuff like this happens, it's really really important to take track on how many normal summons did he do and which monsters did normal summons, because you have the normal summon from the turn, normal summon from the map, and then the normal summon out of the bird effects. So as long as you are cognizant of that, you should be fine. Like I have literally everything on the board to interact with this board. What I don't know is how will what's important is how do I interact with it. So I'm going to fast forward here. I saw Liek, he Advents of Adventures, so he dodged it. He grabbed the Eaglin back, he grabbed Toucan, and that's really good for him as well because now he can chain block with Robina as well. So I do Scream. Scream doesn't mill anything, but now his monsters are less than 500. I Appaloosa the normal summon, and this is really important. Since I know he has Endpen in hand, Endpen can freeze the Appaloosa and the Grapha. I immediately Redoer to trigger the Cheiron, and I go Sharon effect to return, and that will prompt the Kaleido Heart and their primitive planet to pop to banish both his monsters. That's really important to do because his next normal summon will be Empen if I don't get rid of their bodies. So that's exactly what I do. I summon the Mud Dragon, Planet, and Kaleido trigger. He does the Toucan, he normal summons, and I remind him that all his normal summons has been already used, and that's game. He grabs the map, he does that, he grabs the Advent, he does that, he grabs Robina, he attacks the map, Robina into Eaglin, Eaglin triggers. He's pretty much full combo. He's going to end on Empen plus Avian. And that's going to be really, really important because if you already see my hand, you see that I have Super Poly. And like, the Super Poly is gonna make it so I get rid of both his birds. I summon Garura, I grab Black Sheep, and now he'll stoop because he already knows what's coming. And if you learned anything from the game against the purely player, that means I'm going to grab Poly. Poly is going to make it so I make Guardian Chimera. He cannot interact with it properly. The Chimera is going to pop his board, and the Halfness is also gonna trigger. If he does interact with it using the Dreaming Town, I have Talents, and Talents is just going to net me even more advantage. But yeah, those are the duels. Going back to the deck, like, you're already seeing like what the deck can do. You're already seeing like stuff that you can do with the deck. You already know why every single card is in here in this extra deck. Like, I've been seeing a lot of tier players that don't play Garura, but I feel like Super Poly is that strong of a card that you just cannot warrant like not playing Garura, especially since Sprite is probably going to be more popular now. And yeah, it's really cool. Like if you didn't see it on the other games, but like for example, against the purely player, I do play spell. I did side in the Spellcaster just because it pretty much shuts down their turn. It shuts down Sky Striker as well. It shuts down Branded. I feel Labyrinth is going to be very, very popular. Probably very soon. I mean, not soon. The deck is already popular. So Jinzo is another really, really strong one. But yeah, like, I hope this helped you in some shape or capacity. I hope this gave you some insight of this deck at least. This doesn't have to be the deck you have to choose for the format, but it's the deck I started with, and as you can see, it's garnering very good results. Like, player interaction and player knowledge is going to be very, very important this next format, especially if you're playing a deck like this one. But yeah, keep practicing and keep dueling.